It's very easy to jump to conclusions after a performance like that, and absolutely we do need to say what it is. It was an awful result for us. But what I want to do in this video is analyse what went wrong. I want to look at the team sheet, I want to look at the performances, and I want to look at the system more importantly than anything else, because Enzo Maresca came into Chelsea Football Club with a clear vision. He said that I'm going to change the tactical setup at Chelsea, and what this system is going to do is help Chelsea win football matches. The Leicester fans were saying to us, be careful of this guy. He loves possession, doesn't do a lot with it, and it isn't going to be beautiful football, and it's going to take a little bit of time to learn. And that is exactly what we've seen with this performance. Let's get into the team sheet. I'll put it on screen right now. The first player that we had was obviously Sanchez in goal, Robert Sanchez. We're going to talk all about him, so don't worry about that. Then we had Wesley Fofana, we had Badiashile, and we had Colwill at the centre-back positions. Reece James was inverting. Next to him was Romeo Lavia. Then we had Carney and Christopher Nkunku as the 3/8s in this Enzo Maresca system. We had Noni Madueke on the right, Mark Guiu through the middle, and my boy Mykhailo Mudryk on the left-hand side. Now, the next thing that I'm going to show you is the average positions for these players. The centre-backs are way too far apart. We see 3 at the back systems. What tends to happen is the centre-backs are quite condensed and quite close together. They have to do that because if they don't, they get torn apart through the middle. You don't really need centre-backs to be pushing out wide, covering wingers, because if you do, you just have number 8s pushing through the middle. And in the modern game of football, people love a number 10 run, and they'll just completely eviscerate us. And in fact, that's really what happened in this game. We saw the number 10 runs. We saw runners coming from midfield and scoring goals in the area, outside the area. It was absolutely ridiculous. We were torn apart. And I think those average positions are very, very telling. Now, not only that, we saw that people like Romeo Lavia, the DM, was completely isolated. The pivot was absolutely nowhere. And I think really what it shows more than anything is the midfield are detached from the defensive unit. If you look at this, look at where Reece James is. He is still quite high up. But then you look at the 3/8s. Carney Chukwuemeka, he is the highest guy up in these average positions, which you love because you want him crashing the box, but maybe you don't want him as high as he is there. And Christopher Nkunku showing his quality, obviously technically an immense player, but again, very, very far up. So let's get into the first thing that we really need to discuss more than anything else. I mentioned it briefly there, is the defence. Now, you look at the defenders that we have on the pitch there, and you have to say, it does feel like our starting centre-back pairings and really our centre-back 3 now. Wesley Fofana coming back off a very bad injury, but really is elite quality, you have to say. He was one of the players that every defence in Europe wanted when we signed him. He's come off a year-plus injury, straight back into the team. And I feel really physically he looks fine, he looks up to it. But you have to say, there were moments in this game that you just don't understand. And I'll get onto him in more detail in a second. Benoit Badiashile, again, misplaced pass today, gave the ball away. And you have to say there were so many games at the beginning of last season that he didn't do what he needed to do. And there were games at the end of the season where he looked immense and looked like he should be starting. I think the jury's out with him. And again, we'll talk in more detail with him in a bit. Levi Colwill just looked anonymous and was far too isolated on the left-hand side. He was basically playing his own game over there on the other side. For me, this is a simple solution. These players need to be closer together. If they aren't, they're just going to get torn apart. Enzo Maresca's system relies on those boys being very close together. We see more than anything, there is no width around them and there was always an overload. And so what we needed to also see was that the midfielders were coming back and supporting them. And I just don't think they were doing that. Reece James looks lost as an inverted fullback. He really did in this game in particular. And I do think if we don't train these guys up very quickly to play this role, they will get found out. Like, playing people out of position was something that we beat over the head Pochettino with over and over again. We were fuming with it. We said that it wasn't good enough, and we have to do the same with Enzo Maresca. If this experiment of the inverted fullbacks doesn't work, it's going to get found out in a very, very big way. And it's almost reminiscent for me a little bit of the Tottenham system, how it can get found out with balls over the top for them and just getting runners in behind. For us, as I say, it's runners from the number 10 positions and going in. Romeo Lavia, I felt sorry for him in a weird way. He is not a bad player. Coming back, I should say, off another injury again for him. He just looked like he was a one-man band in the midfield. And for me, it's really interesting. The way that I see Enzo Maresca's system is that he has 5 defenders and he has 5 attackers. And I want that line to be blurred in between the two. I don't want to have one defensive unit and one attacking unit. The fact that Carney was where he was, just way too far up. I love Nkunku being this option as a midfielder, and I feel that really we'll see Cole Palmer playing in that position as well. But does that mean that we don't have the defensive solidity behind us to be able to prevent goals? Conceding 4 goals against a Celtic team is by no means a small feat. It's very concerning indeed. And this is where... And I suppose this is the key thing now when we're talking about cons and something that we need to be worried about. This is where the pressure really comes on Enzo Maresca. We're going to see more and more now. We're going to see more and more social stuff. We're going to see potentially stuff in the stadium when we get back to Stamford Bridge. There will be pressure on him. We already see people saying they miss Mauricio Pochettino. I saw it all over the live stream. And thanks to all of you for watching if you tuned in on the live stream. And we saw so many people join the channel there, loads of new subscribers. So if you aren't subscribed, please do join us. We're going to be doing loads more tactical analysis and deep dives like this, all about Chelsea Football Club. So thank you to all of you for joining the channel. But I do think if we don't improve this midfield, then the defence is going to get completely split apart. And so Enzo Maresca really needs to get those free eights doing what free eights do and pushing up, but also pushing backwards. Now, the key part of this, I think you're going to see it more often than personnel with anything. If you look at the key areas that we're missing at the moment in terms of players not being there, midfield is potentially one of the most overt areas where we're missing people. You've got people like Enzo, you've got people like Caicedo, you've got players like even Dewsbury Hall that is there with the squad right now but not deemed fit enough to play, obviously with a small injury. We really do miss those guys. And I think with that energy in the midfield, if we don't have that box-to-box element, we're going to be found out. And they really do need support Romeo Lavia, because if we don't, the defence is going to get found out. And it comes not just from the individual defenders. There has to be bodies around them. Like even the first goal gets put in from the box. There was no one pressing that player. And I really do think we need to get involved on that pretty quickly. I'll tell you what was also fascinating in this game. There was another experiment going on beyond just the inverted wingers. We saw an inverted centre-back in this game. Wesley Fofana in the first half was pushing on into midfield and actually even very high, like close to number 9s and close to number 10s. He was pressing the almost like centre-mid kind of player and pushing them right up. I don't think that worked at all. What was happening then is that Reece James out of possession was forming the other centre-back. And then it just feels like, again, we're just playing with 3 players at the back. Like we were complaining over and over again last season that some of the 4 players were isolated, let alone 3. And so it's very clear where we're conceding goals right now. It's positional inability to fit into this system and the players not learning the system well enough, but also potentially the system itself being more complex than it needs to be. And so if Enzo Maresca's system doesn't work in pre-season, he needs to change it very quickly. If he doesn't, we're going to get found out very quickly in the Premier League. And as I say, just like Tottenham, just like other teams that have tried various different tactical innovations in the past, we're going to concede goals. And if we concede goals, we're going to lose games. It is that simple. And more than anything, this system really does identify some key areas in which we're missing players. Now, Cucurella is one that I think will invert and play so well on the left-hand side. It will allow Reece James to form the back 3 as a right centre-back. And I really do feel that Reece will be better in that position than he would do even in a DM position. Although I am a big exponent of Reece James as a DM. I think he can play it. I just think he needs to learn it. But seeing him in that centre-back position will allow the natural inverted fullback in Marc Cucurella, who played so well there for so much of the end of last season and looked basically like another midfielder. It will make him even better, and it won't expose some of the weaknesses in Reece James' game in terms of how he's playing right now. So we'll improve immediately when we do that. But it's also about some of the other players that are not there. For example, Trevor Chalobah. This guy played for the reserve team, captained the reserve team the same day that we were playing against Celtic. And it shows something. It shows our inability to recruit in an effective way sometimes. It shows mistakes of the recruitment team in that they sign players like Axel Disasi, who, fair enough to him, didn't get involved in the starting lineup or wasn't involved even in the squad in this game against Celtic. So you can't say he's too shit from that perspective. Wasn't even involved in the team. But he was signed when we had Trevor Chalobah still in the squad. He was signed as a replacement, really, for this guy. I don't see the difference between them. And the fact that this guy is being forced out the door, not even on this tour, it just says a lot, doesn't it? And I do think him being involved today against Celtic we would have been better off. We would have played better. And so it's very concerning from that perspective. And the recruitment guys really do need to look at themselves. And Trev conducting himself so well. And he's going to be playing at a very good team. And we're going to regret selling him. I do think it is that simple, to be fair. But I know one thing. I know that you are going to be screaming at your laptops right now, screaming at your mobile phones and saying to me, Josh, you talked about the centre-backs. You've slagged off our right-back. You've slagged off the wingers. You've slagged off the midfielders for not helping the defence either. You got to talk about one player in particular here, mate. You got to talk about the goalkeeper. And don't worry, we will get onto the goalkeeper. Robert Sanchez starts this game, and the way I said it on the stream was that this was Robert Sanchez's position to lose. And that seems very interesting now, doesn't it? He starts this game, and he starts pretty well, to be fair. He made some unbelievable saves, prevented certainly a few goals. But then in the second half, he forgot that he was a goalkeeper, decided that he was still an outfield player, and basically did some absolute hospital passes. I do think the hospital pass to Badiashile, although Badiashile made the mistake and gave the ball to the Celtic player who then ends up slotting it in the back of the net. Robert Sanchez needs to be smarter with some of those passes. We saw it last season. He gave some hospital balls to some of the defenders. You know, gave the ball away in the Arsenal game, goal conceded. And it really, this is the saddest thing, right? This was the reason why Petrovic came in and replaced him, because he wasn't doing stupid stuff like that. And yet, Sanchez gets another chance and he lets us down again. And I think this is a moment now, and it's very interesting. Jorgensen signs today. 20 million euros, 22-year-old goalkeeper. He signs on this day. And I do think this is the beginning of the end for Robert Sanchez. If he doesn't perform in pre-season, if he doesn't have a wonder game in the next 2 or 3 matches, why wouldn't Jorgensen be the number one for the start of the season? For me, before today, I would see Sanchez starting in goal against Man City. But after this performance, it just wasn't good enough. So what I wanted to do was look at the stats and actually compare the two goalkeepers and see who is better. Because as much as we can say we don't know that much about Jorgensen, we certainly know a lot about Sanchez. But let's see what the data says. There are 3 key metrics for me that set Jorgensen apart from Robert Sanchez, especially in this graph, right? Robert Sanchez has got the leg up over him in a few different areas. But what he doesn't have the better of him is in mistakes, which is the key one, right? Jorgensen has significantly less mistakes in ball possession against Robert Sanchez. And that, for me, is the killer for Robert Sanchez. If this guy comes in and just does things simply and is better with his feet, he'll displace him very, very quickly. Not only that, he's got a better save percentage and he makes more saves. And so for me, the decision is getting really clear, isn't it? And I'm not really rooting for any other player to come in. And it's sad that Petrovic will be gone, but let's be honest, it's over. The Petrovic era is gone. He's the easier sellable asset. He'll be gone. And Sanchez will end up being the number 2 because he can't keep putting in stinkers like he did today. As much as he kept us in the game in the first half, he gave so many poor chances away in the second, and it could have been even more goals. So, yep, I'm not blaming just the defence in the midfield for this. The goalkeeper absolutely needs to take blame, but it's unfair in a way because Sanchez kept us in the game. You have to say, though, this position needs to be solved. We've got 7-8 goalkeepers on the books, and we just still can't get it right. So we've got to cross our fingers that Jorgensen is the guy that will be the goalkeeper forevermore for us. Because if we don't, and we have to keep going in the market, I mean, it could be the biggest failure of our recruitment team. So let's see what happens with that. And before we go on to some positives of this game, because it's not all doom and gloom, there are a lot of things that went wrong in this match. And yes, the result is poor. But before we do that, let's just talk about the wingers. I do think the wingers were completely isolated. And what I found watching the Maresca system in the last couple of games is that the wingers end up very wide and they really don't seem to impact the game massively. And what I'm worried about that is we have so much talent on the wings. You know, you saw with Raheem Sterling coming on, he looked pretty decent. Mudryk had some very good touches, but was isolated, didn't get the ball very much. Noni Madueke thought he had a very good first half, very poor second half, and potentially got taken off a little bit too late, really. But those boys, they're isolated, they're not getting the ball enough, and we know how good they are. And if they're not taking on players and getting in the box and getting shots away, then we really are stuffed because they're one of our better outlets at the moment, or were last season. So I'm really excited and I hope that Enzo Maresca ends up getting the best out of those boys. But look, as I say, it's not all doom and gloom. There were some positives of this game. And I think as much as we have to be realists about this, as much as we can say, yep, that was really poor, there are clear errors. There's a lot going wrong. And this is I can understand why people are getting down the crisis avenue. I'm not. And the reason why is this. I think Christopher Nkunku being back, he looks like an absolute superstar. And we did sign him as a superstar, and he looks like he can make an impact at that kind of level. He had a very good header in the first half that nearly went in. He looked lively whenever he got on the ball. I do like him in this inside number 8 position. And I do think he'll be a very good talismanic player for us next season. Or I hope so, at the very, very least. But getting someone of his quality is brilliant. Mark Guiu, I thought, again, was a really good option and an out ball for us. He held the ball very well. He got into the box very well. He looked really, really strong. When he got the ball and got in the box, he got knocked down, got straight back up, got a shot off. He tried to win penalties, tried to win shots. He did what he needed to do in the dribbling sense as well, kept the ball very well. And this really now for us, he could be the backup striker that we really, really need. And he'll be pressing not only the Celtic defenders, but also Nicholas Jackson to be involved in this team. And I think he's got a chance, if he does put in performances like this, to really put pressure under Nicholas Jackson. For me, asking Michael, Nicholas Jackson still starts as the number 9. But Mark Guiu has definitely overperformed this summer so far. And then I do think we also have to talk about players coming back. Now, as much as I say that team sheet, and I'll put it back on screen now, felt like our A team that we could put out, it doesn't mean that's going to be our A team at the start of the season. You look at players still coming back. Cole Palmer, Nicholas Jackson still not involved. Enzo Fernandez still not involved. Caicedo still not involved. Cucurella still not involved. Gallagher still not with the squad, and he's still potentially a Chelsea player until we hear otherwise. So there are still players that can come in and bring in energy and bring in a level of quality as well. Even Dewsbury Hall not being involved in the squad today is a clear indictment, a player that can play for us and be a real difference maker, and has been signed to be involved in the first team. Otherwise, why would they have spent the money on him? So the fact that we've still got those players to return is a sign of positivity for me. And it does mean that we will have better performances than we did today, because there's a lot of quality that's not with the squad right now. As much as we say that, obviously the players on the pitch have enough quality and they should be beating Celtic. But as I say, I think the general point here is not to jump the gun. And there is a bit of time now that we need to learn this system. It doesn't happen overnight. This guy's communication and this guy's sort of like needs are quite intense. It's almost like that Conte era where you have to learn his movements. He has this style of play and you have to adapt to it and you have to learn from it. And I think as much as we right now can say, yeah, it's a pile of shit, Enzo Maresca is going to be rubbish, we should have kept hold of Pochettino. That era is done. Pochettino's never coming back. Clear Lake are not going to return back to the managers that we had in the past era. We keep hearing rumours about Thomas Tuchel coming back. We heard rumours about Conte. We heard rumours about Jose Mourinho. We're not going back to that level of manager. This guy is going to be here. He's got a 5-year contract. Let's give him at least the pre-season to see what he can do. Like, at the end of the day, as much as we want pre-season to be full of lots of victories and 8-0 wins, sometimes what it's about is about learning the system, getting used to the players, building up fitness, building up sort of like intricacies, passing movements between players, relationships, that sort of thing, right? These guys are a young team and they've got to build that. And so as much as the criticism is absolutely warranted in this game, I think you also just kind of have to say fair play to the lads. They're learning this system. It's going to take time. It's not the easiest thing to learn. I think we have to grow and develop from that. And look, I do think there are positive signs here. I just think we just got to strap in. This start of the season, especially with that first game, Man City at home, it's going to be a wild ride. Enzo Maresca, as I said in that video that I did about Pochettino's sacking, whoever comes in, and it is Enzo is the guy, was always going to be under immense pressure. Even if he wins that game against Man City, if he loses against Wolves, they'll be cool to say, why didn't you keep Pochettino? So whatever he does, he's damned. Do you know what I mean? Like that, I feel like he's going to be under immense pressure. But there are still positive signs in this team. Now, if we can just get the defence solid, if we can bring in this new goalkeeper, if we can get the midfielders that we need in the team, like a Caicedo, who was one of our better players, last season, let's be honest, then I do think this sort of like this momentum, the sort of look and feel of the team will be different. Now, we've got to learn this system. It'll be tough. But I'm really interested to see what you guys think. What were your overall sentiment from the game? Are you hitting that panic button right now? Are you really concerned with how we're playing? Because I understand why you would be. but for me, there's a few positive shoots. Let me know in the comments. If you do want to pick up this new wonderful kit that you saw the boys playing in today, by the way, you can do so. Just use my link in the description. I'll whack a QR code on screen as well so you can check it out. Go directly to there. You'll be supporting me if you do, and you'll be picking up what I think is actually a pretty beautiful shirt. So let me know what you think about that in the comments as well, because I know a lot of you hate it, but I think a lot of you, I think it's growing on you as well. But yeah, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. We'll be doing loads more reviews. I'll be in the studio with Joey very soon as well. And thank you so much for watching this. Thank you to all of you that joined the live stream. We'll be doing many more of those too as well. And I'll see you in the next one.